also in the game plays the tutorial. Now, a game like Bioshock, which also showed the first part of the game, or first level, so to speak, if you could break it into levels, that was amazing. And that was what sold the game for me. And I'm a hardcore gamer, as I'm sure we all are. And I check my Xbox dashboard at least twice a week to see what's coming out. And as soon as I saw Bioshock, I'm like, all right, I've got to try this out. And it's the same as I did with Hitman. And with Hitman, yeah, because I understood the mechanics, I got into it. But what do you think? Do you think it's better to show the first part of the game? Or do you think it's better to just pick good aspects of, make them jump from time to time in the game or show later? What's your feeling on it?
I had a whole set of slides in here about which part of the game to pick and some advantages and disadvantages of both that I had to cut due to time. But a lot of them were really kind of focused on, the reason I cut it is a lot of the stuff was obvious. If you're going to do later in the game, you've got to worry about how do you get the player up to speed to where there's at. You've got to tone down the difficulty, that sort of thing. But to answer your question in terms of which is best, I think it really depends on your game. I know Bioshock, at least in the post-mortem, they said that they do focus testing, which I believe 2K Sports does do this kind of research. I would guess that they'd actually iterated on the gameplay and that they'd found those things. And so if you've got a good initial experience that is compelling, great, by all means throw it in. I would say the thing to think about there is just the pacing of it again. It may be setting up a 20-hour game where you're trying to put together a 20-minute demo. You might want to look at what's appropriate and what's not, and that may affect things. Other games that have maybe that your game is a bit weak at the beginning, and it's really about the more advanced things, then maybe you would want to try a later level. Yeah?
Which is more important, trying to express game atmosphere or mechanics? What are players actually trying to get a sense of how they play it, or what they're going to be exposed to or make you feel?
I want to be careful because I think the methodology that I used for this really focused on the core mechanics, and in some ways, the way you ask the question will give you your answer. So for sure, when you're doing testing like this, the thing that comes out is the core mechanics. People just trying to grasp it, trying to see, is this enjoyable to play? But to say that atmosphere doesn't matter, to say that story doesn't matter, that would be wrong of me to say. It definitely does play a role. In general, and I've been doing this for a long time, I've never really gotten a good sense of that. For sure, if the core mechanics aren't there, it's going to block them from getting into the atmosphere stuff. So you can have the great atmosphere, you can have the great story, the great sound effects, all the emotional stuff, and they get in and they can't do the basic things, they're going to quit at that point, and that's not going to hold them. Where if they're at least kind of having fun with the game, or moving your character around, that feels good, and it feels good to jump or to do whatever, that will get them in longer and give you more time to hook them with some of the other parts of your game.
I was just wondering whether it would be possible to extra work, craft a demo that shows off your core mechanics, your core gameplay, but gives nothing of the story or the atmosphere, just to give them a sense of fun games. Would that actually be as taking out the first level?
It would be a double-edged sword. So another part that I didn't have time to talk about, several people played Dead Rising, which is just, you get in and you just start mashing zombies, and there is some other progression to it and these other mechanics and a story and those sorts of things, but that really wasn't shown to users. And most of them, when they put down the game, said it's a very shallow gameplay. So that would be my concern, that you would run into that. Yeah, they had the case files that popped up at the beginning, but there was no sense of progression through the demo. There was no sense of obtaining anything in the demo. And so when they got done, it was kind of like the test drive. I think I'm just moving around the level.
So there has to be progression.
I do think that progression is important in a demo. Yeah, in the back.
Have you had any experience with live arcade demos where a compelling demo can lead to an immediate purchase? And if so, any lessons you've learned from that?
No, not directly. I left Microsoft right before Live Arcade came out, but that, no.
Just further on that, what length of demo would you say is optimal? What length of time can you keep a player engaged?
Can you keep the player engaged? I'm sure your players would tell you that they would like a demo that's 20 hours long and looks exactly like your game. But in general, 20 to 30 minutes seem to satisfy people. I mean, I'm sure that this isn't necessarily a hard, fast rule, but we did testing for about an hour and a half, and people in general played 3 to 4 demos during that period, and we let them totally control the pacing. I personally thought the Call of Duty 3 demo was a bit short, but it was compelling enough that everyone who played it said, "This is great. I'm interested in learning more or playing or buying it." Yeah.
Would you say that is it better one way or the other to have the person actually reach a finished goal in the demo, or can you leave it like ahead of them so they can see that is the goal, I'm almost there, but in order to actually accomplish even this first goal, I'm going to have to play this game. It's not leaving them struggling about what to do, but they can't actually do it in 20 minutes if they do.
Yeah, I don't have any hard data on this, and I wanted to be careful that I didn't just start to go into design philosophy, because that's not really my job. My job is to kind of show you what users do so that you can do your great design work and work around that. And I feel like I might be starting to encroach on that. But I think the key thing is that they have to recognize that that goal is in sight and that it's obtainable. I personally think if you can give the player some sort of reward during the demo, they're reinforcing. There's a reason we put rewards in games. They're reinforcing. It's a positive experience. It doesn't hurt to have that. Now, if your game structure is such that you're not going to have it in the first 20 minutes, but it happens in minute 30, don't tear up your whole game just to get it in. But you want to make sure that the user understands the progression that they've made towards the goal, and that this is an obtainable goal, rather than I just spent 20 minutes moving around and I'm not sure I'm any further off than I was 20 minutes ago. Way in the back?
Do you think having demos provide a little bit of character development at the start and maybe a slight backstory helpful for the player, kind of help immerse them into the demo? It's
a mixed bag, and this one I do feel that I'm kind of speaking on data because I've watched hundreds and hundreds of people play games. Some people like that, some people don't care about it. So for those people who do care about it, it definitely does help, and for sure when done well, it may capture a few more people who would say that they don't care about it, but then they end up sticking around. I mean, we saw that when we were testing here. Someone would say, "Oh, I always skip movies, I never watch these opening movies," but then one would pop up that would grab their interest, and they would sit through it and watch it. But there's always going to be people who are just going to match through it.
What about people who actually like the game and say they really like it, but they're not going to buy it? Do you get many people who are just satisfied playing demo after demo? Because there's so many demos to choose from. Do you get many people who just wouldn't buy it? They're satisfied with them. They go to the next one.
I would think that may happen. In our study, we didn't necessarily see that a lot, although I did have one person say, "Oh, great, maybe this is pretty cool, maybe I can get it from my friend's cracked Xbox." And then another person who said that they loved the Rockstar table tennis game, can't remember the name now, because they could pretty much play that constantly and in single player or with a friend, and they didn't see any real need to buy the game. Those are a couple, I think, of fringe. There's some things you have to consider. You don't want to give too much away that it satiates them completely.
Just related that quickly, for games like the table tennis one, obviously it's not content driven. So would you put a time limit on a demo like that, or make that?
Yeah, I've seen some demos that do that. The thing that scares me about putting time limits on things is that you're discouraging people from experimenting. And you're discouraging, and you're actually harming the people, you're penalizing the people who are struggling with the game. So if I'm having trouble figuring out the buttons, or I'm not very good, I need time to kind of build up the experience. I'm not quite sure what the best answer is. I know that the sports games tend to just make it really short experiences, but I don't have any data on kind of what's best to do. But I know, like, at least in the States, Madden you have 2-minute quarters the entire game.